Welcome back to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin
And today we are really, really excited to have a guest co-host with us. You could probably, if you're local here in Columbus, Ohio, I'm sure you have had the pleasure of tasting, learning, really diving into your nutritional journey with Chef ADonna. Chef ADonna is she'll actually get to tell you all about what she does. We're huge fans of Chef ADonna.
Big fans.
Over here at True Print for Life. Maylin and I have had the amazing opportunity to just see ADonna flourish in her entrepreneurship journey, in addition to just what she gives to the world and how she serves us through good food, nutrition, and all of that great stuff. So Chef ADonna, welcome. We're excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. You guys, you're so kind. That was like the best introduction welcome ever.
Oh,
thank you.
Well, welcome. And so tell our listeners more about you, just like who you are, just like your journey, why culinary, why, like, just everything that you've been able to accomplish. Like, where does that come from, and share that journey with us?
So something about food, just the thought of it, just bringing everybody together. I was just always drawn to it, even as a kid, but I didn't know what it was. Like when you're a kid, you don't have the words for it. Mm-hmm. I was like, gosh, I really like this. I really love seeing my mom, host dinner parties for people and cook for people and take so much pride in the detail. Like even the napkins that she was using, like they had to be perfect. They had to be folded right. And I just fell in love with that. And then just slowly just watching her cook and, watching people compliment her on her food. And I'm like, wait a minute. But I was kind of her sous chef and like nobody said anything to me. Right. So I took to it and I would stay in the kitchen, with her. But then when she would leave and when the kitchen would be so-called shut down for the night, parents shut down the kitchen for the night, nobody's in here. Mm-hmm. That's when I would really just go in there and I would just play around. Like I would take whatever it is that she cooked. And I'm like, okay, now what else could we do with this? Mm. And sometimes I would go to like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I would make it to clean the kitchen up. And then sometimes I would get like a nice tug at the end of the bed, like on my leg, like, hey, you were in my kitchen playing last night and you did not clean up. Wow. But I would just get in there and I would just like lose myself in the food and the kitchen. And then I would start bringing food to school. And my friends were like, you cook that? I'm like, yeah. They're like, your mom let you play in her kitchen? Our mom says we cannot. I'm like, Mom, she doesn't care, right? She wanted us to learn how to cook, to know how to feed ourselves and to be able to feed other people. So I think that's what kind of got me into it.
Wow.
That's amazing. Since little, you had this love.
Yes.
That's incredible.
I can remember probably like first or second grade, I roasted like a whole chicken. I was watching a cooking show and like I asked my dad, like, hey, can you go to the store and get this stuff? I'm sure he was looking at me like I had completely lost my mind.
Wow.
But he went and he got it, right? And I just remember like working with this whole chicken and like I had lemons and like my mom had like a lemon zester. I didn't even know what a zester was. Mm-hmm. And I was just like going zest crazy, right? But I didn't know like you're not supposed to go all the way down to the white part up, but I was just... I was like, oh, this is so much fun. So it looked like cheese, like it was so much zest, but it was so good though. It ended up being so good. But that was like my earliest memory, like first or second grade.
Wow, I love that your parents were just so like receptive, open. It was just like, go, because we often talk about like in other episodes, just the power of like pouring into young people in that environment and being intentional about creating that environment, because your parents obviously wanted you to have that experience, be able to freely try things. And so would you say because of like that environment and your parents being open in that way, was that really what kind of further fueled?
I think absolutely. I think that was a huge part of it. But the other side to that, when I told them I wanted to do it professionally, they're like, you can't cook for a living. Like women can't do that. So there were two sides to it. So it was just something that I said, okay, well, maybe I can just do this for fun. I went and I got a degree in technical writing, which is like completely the opposite of like creative cooking, culinary. But even in doing that, I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling this. Like, I know my parents said, like, women can't do that. You don't, because then you weren't really seeing like women chefs on TV like you see now. So I just kind of took that and I was like, well, I guess I can't do anything with it. But it just, like if you have something in you, it just kept pulling and kept pulling. So even when I went back to school to do like some continuing education stuff for technical writing. But then at the same time, I would go back and I would take culinary classes. So if I had maybe 4 classes to take, and there were only like 3 technical writing classes that were available for that term. I'm like, all right, what do they have going on in like the culinary department? So I was taking nutrition classes. I was taking like hospitality management, beverage stuff. And my family's like, you're wasting your time. Why would you do that? You need to be focused. And I'm like, well, even if I don't do anything with it, I'm learning. It's something that I want to do. So it's not wasting my time. But when I decided to go to culinary school, all those classes that I was just taking along the way, I was like halfway through culinary school without even trying.
Wow.
Yeah. So it made it that much easier.
Now,
go. You're probably going to ask the same question. Go ahead.
I'm going to ask this. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's not.
Okay.
So you were told 2 different things, right? And we hear that a lot in girls and women. Like, we're taught, this is fun. This is for fun.
Right. This is for fun. You can't earn a living
a career,
at this.
right? Like, you're not John, right?
Right.
So, but what made you decide that even though you've been conditioned, right, to believe that this was not possible for you, what was that thing that said, no, actually, I'm going to try it? What was that?
I think it was, number one, at the time, my partner that I was with, they were very like open to culinary. So he was the one that brought it to me. And he's like, you know, there's like a culinary school here that you can go to and I already checked and I know how much their tuition is. And like, I can take care of your first year of tuition if you can figure out something to do with the rest. I was like, yeah.
Say less.
Yeah, say less.
Right.
But even still, I wasn't thinking, you know, this is a career. It's just like, I just kept feeling that tug and that pull, like, okay, I'm sitting here like I'm typing documents all day long. Like, this is not going to work for me. Like, I'm going to be stressed. I'm going to like pass out. It just was not fulfilling. So I started, even in culinary school, like I would do meal prep for some people and they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like, I want to like share this with my friend or share this with my cousin. And then it just turned into like a business without me like going into it. It was just like, oh yeah, I'll cook for you.
Wow.
And then I kind of put some structure and process to it with the American Personal and Private Chef Association. I didn't even realize that there was a business for it per se. I just knew I always wanted to cook. So that's how that came about.
So when you went to school for it, did you, and you mentioned just you didn't know it could be a business, which we know you're a dope businesswoman right now, but what was your intention to go to culinary school then? What were you going to do with that?
I think initially it was still just for fun. I still, in my head, even years later, in my head was like, you can't do it professionally. Like, just take it for what it is. You need a creative outlet for right now. You know, something fun for you to do outside of technical writing, which again, completely boring, not fun. But once I started hearing like some of the stories, like some of my chef instructors and some of the people that were in the class that were out in the real world working, I'm like, there are more women in here than there are men. So what, like, where did my mom get this thought from that you can't do this professionally? But then what kind of made me curve and turn more toward the personal chef side, I kept hearing all these stories in the kitchen. It's like, okay, well, I mean, you're here, you're going to culinary school, but don't think you're going to get right out and like be a top chef at a restaurant. Like, you're going to start off sweeping floors and you're going to be, I was like, no, I didn't come here for that.
Put your time. You're going to put your time.
Yeah. No. I'm like, because I'm already like going toward the second stage, like a second career. So you're in like that second career. I'm not starting off sweeping floors. That is somebody else's journey. That's not part of my journey today. So like, what else can we do to where I can still cook, but where I'm not caught up in like the craziness of a commercial kitchen and like the kitchen brigade. Yeah, the toxic and the ranks that you have to go through. Because I knew that alone, that's something that would have made me pull out too. Like, not for me, not doing it.
Yeah.
So.
And then you decided to go into the personal chef part. So how was that? Like, what was your first, do you remember your first experience as a personal chef?
My first experience as a personal chef was I did meal prep for a man that owned his own small business. This was in Michigan, owned his own small business. And I think at the time, my partner just like put an ad on Craigslist without me knowing. And I was like, and I started getting phone calls. I was like, this is really strange. People are calling. They want me to cook for them. Like, who told them? He's like, oh, yeah, I meant to tell you.
Oh,
so I put an ad on Craigslist.
Wow. That was supportive.
The power of your partner, right?
The power of having a supportive partner. But then I was still working a full-time job, right? And in culinary. So I'm like, how am I going to make this work? But I sat down, I met with him. He's like, I'm vegetarian, I'm gluten free. So like that was my first experience. It wasn't like, you know, somebody that eats everything. So it really had me like going to the books and like studying and like, how can I make this taste good? And how can I give him like the same textures and flavors that he's used to, but he's doing vegetarian and gluten free, right? My very first client out the gate.
Wow.
So that worked out great. But then, like I said, juggling school and also working a full-time job, he actually started doing some of the meal prep for me and with me. So like I would, you know, get off work and he's like, your meals are done. Like, let's go drop them off to your client. I was like, wait, I didn't have to do it. How much of, like, what percentage are you looking for? He's like, no, like you just go do it, you know, see what he likes. If he likes it, great. Like, let's come back to the drawing board and like, let's come up with more recipes just like this.
Was he a chef?
No, that's the thing. He was not a chef at all, but he was in that creative space. Like he was like a music engineer. So like, I think that was another creative outlet for him too. So
Wow.
yeah.
The power of partnerships. We talked about this all the time, right?
Yeah.
And then you did that. And then when did you make the transition to go from, okay, I'm going to juggle this, do personal chef, and then be killing myself out here with these 24-hour jobs, right? To like, okay, I can do this now, which is, you know, just doing your own business.
Yeah. So even with that, I did that for, oh my gosh, I would say probably 10 years. And it went through like different seasons. So I did catering. I did the personal chef work. I would travel with families. Like if they went on vacation, they didn't want to worry about food, but they didn't want to order, like they didn't want to eat pizza every day. So I would go with them. I would make their meals. But some years later, I ended up having an injury that I didn't know it was an injury. I just started feeling pain one day, and I was in a client's kitchen, and I started dropping glasses and I started dropping knives. I'm like, this is not safe. What's going on? I started to lose like some feeling in my fingers. My thumbs started going numb and started being really sore. I took maybe 2 years off completely to try to figure that out. And then in that process, I learned that the same food that I was using to bring people together, which I knew all along, but those just weren't the meals that people were requesting, we could also use these same foods to heal us, right? So I started the journey going toward being a culinary coach, which now it is literally showing you what we can do with the foods, how you can use it to heal you, how you can, again, be intentional about what you're putting in your body.
Yeah.
But most of all, making it taste good, because nobody is going to eat it if it tastes like health food or it tastes like cardboard.
Yeah.
Bland.
Yeah, so I tell people all the time, like, I make skinny food taste fat. Like, that's the best way I can.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that tagline. I love that.
That's like the best
skinny
way.
food. You need to write that down.
That's a
your
whole
mission
tagline.
statement. That is lit. I like that.
That made me so happy. I'm so like, my whole stomach was like, did you hear that? I heard that. And that is actually awesome that you chose this path, because this is why I text you. You're on my speed dial numbers because, you know, right now there's so much, you know, craze about, you know, being healthy and trying different things. And for busy people, like, you know, we're very busy, we're very, you know, committed. So sometimes I have meetings, like back-to-back 10 meetings a day, right? Because there's so much, and I don't have time to make meals. Sometimes I look at 10 o'clock, I'm like, I haven't even eaten breakfast yet. I just had coffee today, you know, and sometimes I'm feeling really weak because I haven't eaten. So I decided that I was going to take power of this, my power bag, and subscribe to this subscription meals where the meals come in ready for you to eat. And what I found when I was reading some of the labels that I don't even understand like half of them, is that they had like, I'm supposed to be this, but then they have high of that. And I said, Chef ADonna, please help me. So I send you some pictures prior to this.
Yes.
Right? So you can help me, like, okay, this is a very, you know, popular thing now. So how do we go from taking those meals, but making it, are they really healthy for you? Are we reading the labels before we order them? Did I do the right thing?
Absolutely. So one of the first thing, like we were talking about before we started, like they can get away with labeling foods and labeling meals a certain way, but it really comes down to us just flipping it over, like taking 2 seconds and reading the label, right? And so that's one of the things I teach with my culinary coaching. It's in our very first phase. We have like 4 stages that we have to hit, and we do an assessment just to figure out where you are in that area, right? You may be a master at reading labels. Great. Let's go on to something else. First thing I always say, read the label, right? But before you even read the label, go into it with your own goals in mind, right? Like if you say you want to do low carb, or you want to do low sodium, or you want to do low fat, what does that mean for you, right? Because my low sodium and your low sodium may do maybe two different things. Your, low carb and some different things. So you have to identify that first. Flip the label. There are plenty of apps that I kind of show my clients how to use where you can just like quickly scan the label. It'll pull out the stuff that you don't want to eat, the things that don't align with your goal. And that's the biggest thing. Just read the label.
So let's go a step back.
Okay.
For a
Sure.
second. So when you say when you need to, what are your goals and what do you want to have low sodium? How do you even determine what levels of anything of those things, right? Because I just learned you have the fats, the protein, this, the sodium, like carbs. How do you determine what the right levels are for you depending on your goal? For example, for me, I want to release additional weight from my body. So if I want to do that, where should I figure out like what my levels should be?
Yeah. So the first thing I recommend, and I have to say this full disclaimer, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. It's just something that I do. And I use it to, like, I share my experience with you. But in determining what you want your goals to be, I mean, you can always talk to a nutritionist first, right? So there are some people that'll come in, they already have the goals that they established with the nutritionist. Unfortunately, the nutritionists and the dietitians, a lot of times they don't really tell you how to get there. They just like give you a list and it's like, this is what your numbers need to be, which is fine, right? For what you and I would do. Because then we take that and we make it relatable. We make it come to life. So if they say, if you tell the nutritionist your goal is low carb, they may say, okay, great. Well, 20 carbs per day, right? But then when we look at some of those meals, like in what, right? But I mean, that's kind of like, for some different plans that you follow, that could be the average. And if you're not seeing a nutritionist or a dietitian, there are plenty, fitness apps and trackers that you can put your goals into and put your starting point in, and it'll print that stuff out for you to let you know. But I mean, like if you're starting at 20 carbs, like that means like you would be eating like a third of one of those meals, but that would be like your food for the entire day. Right.
God. Yeah.
So, and that's just to be able to get to, whatever you set your goal to. But I mean, typically I feel like when people are talking about low carb, like on the low end, they're talking about 20 on up to 40. I don't think I've seen anything necessarily higher than that. But it is so much easier to get to than what you think. Like I said, of course, in reading the labels, and then just try to focus on the fresh stuff, right? Like try to get as fresh as possible. I don't really advocate for no carb because that's pretty much impossible, right? But if you can take out, the excess carbs, like where are the carbs from the processed foods coming in? There were some different additives in the meals that you had, like tapioca starch, like it says carbohydrate in the name, right? We know starch is a carb. So like it's adding tapioca starch to thicken it, but you can use other things like psyllium husk, or you can even blend up some oats and like use that as a thickener, but you're not having to deal with something processed. And if it is processed, it's a process that you're doing, right? Like if you're taking oats out the can and you're dumping it right into your blender, you know that there is nothing else in there other than the blended oats that you're using for your thickener.
So there's like a process that I have to do.
Yeah. Yes, a little bit. But I mean, and that's kind of more on honestly, some of the things that I saw that they had the tapioca starch in it, I was like, well, why would they do that? That didn't need a thickener, because by the time like it sits in their factory or warehouse, and by the time it gets to you and then you heat it up and you cool it, it's going to thicken on its own anyway. So there were just like some added things that...
Extra stuff.
Yeah.
But was it for the taste though? This is supposed to make it taste...
Tapioca starch, absolutely not for the taste. Like that is, if they took that out, you would not notice a difference.
Okay, so we need to figure out why they... I now have questions about why this is being added, right? Like that's a whole different level. Lots of questions. Well, as I go into this journey of figuring it out, like how can I be more intentional about eating, healthier and at a good schedule? And, they talk about intermittent fasting as well. That has been a really hot term and topic, and how to combine both. With your clients, have you seen a lot of the intermittent fasting? I have seen intermittent fasting. One of the things that I'm always going to advocate for, though, is something that is sustainable for you. So that may mean that it may take you a little bit longer to get to your goal. But if you know that you're one of those people that, like, no matter what, you have to put something in your stomach every 2 hours, right? I'm not even going to help you, like, set up an intermittent fasting plan, right? Because I want you to be successful. So if you start doing
intermittent fasting and it doesn't work, I don't want you coming back to me like, well, that didn't work. It wasn't worth what I paid you. You have to go with what your body kind of wants you to do.
Yeah.
Put it around your lifestyle. And that's one of the things that we teach too. Like wouldn't give you the same plan that I would give her and vice versa, because everybody's lifestyles and goals are different. So.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think I like that you said that, because it's about creating healthy habits. It's not a quick fix. And I think sometimes when you're on this like wellness journey, especially when you're like, well, I'm going to Miami in 3 weeks. So
I need to get it off now.
Like, to release 300. I know it took me 10 years to gain all this weight, but I
need it off in a few days.
You got 3 weeks to help me out. And I think there can be, like that's hard, because we're putting way too much pressure on our bodies and on our mental health as well, with trying to like quickly like have quick temporary fixes, but we're not creating like long habits. And the habits that you need to be able to sustain. So like, great, after you get back from Miami, you look amazing in your bikini. Yeah, the picture's great.
Home, the picture is great. You get back home about a week later, all of it's coming back, because you just did it for just that time. And I mean, that's fine too if that's your goal. But don't expect just don't expect for it to be sustainable. And that's really what I try to teach, is like, we start off small. Like I said, we go through that core 4 process of like seeing where you are with everything. If you need more help in certain areas, we'll focus on that, and we'll, kind of put the other stuff to the side. But it's all about like those really, really small steps that you can make every day. And we may repeat some steps, right? So there may be something that you're having a hard time with, and you come back in 2 weeks and I'm like, so how'd that go? It's like, yeah, not too good. Great. Let's break that step down like even further. I help you try to remove some of the barriers. Like, what stopped you from getting there? Because I know you have the tools and resources. So let's talk about it. Is it something in your house? Did your grocery shopping not go right? Were you working late? Okay, great. So now if this is a new trend and you find that you're working later, let's kind of redo your plan around what is going on in your life at that moment.
And I think sometimes it's like a household decision too, because like, I mean, if you're a single person, great, you can make that decision, create those habits, and it's really up to you. But when you are living with someone else, or you have roommates or whatever, it's like, I feel like sometimes that can be counterproductive, because if you're trying to be healthy and clean eating, and then your, significant other, your guardian, your parent, whoever is like, just like, frying chicken in front of you. And so it's like, how do you have those conversations with like the people you are really around, like your main core people? Like, I want to get on this healthy journey. Like, I would love for you to do it with me, because I think it is like, sometimes it has to be like a collective journey together, especially like for me. Like, I feel like I hate it that I introduced my kids to some of these like fast foods, these chips, these things, because like when I try to like when I'm really focused and I want to eat clean and I go to Whole Foods and I'm feeling real good about myself, everybody in the house is like, what did you buy? Like, what's mom's on one of those? Like, everybody's looking at me crazy. My son is
But he
upset.
likes the kettle chips. What's that little kale thing?
He likes seaweed.
Okay, that's good. That's a good start.
But he loves hot Cheetos.
Okay.
So I messed my son all up. He loves a little seaweed chips, but he literally just this morning was like, "Can you get me some hot Cheetos?" And I was like shaking my head. Like, so it's just like it's so hard too, because I think depending on how you were raised too, I think plays a part of it. Like, culturally, like we eat a lot of rice and pork and all these like unhealthy things. And then it's like, now here I am in my mid 30s. Like, how do I just like do this and then incorporate my family?
I think the first, just to kind of tackle your first point, and I think you guys will resonate with this. Like, if you try to get them on board and they don't want to do it, you have to remember your why, right? And if you keep that in the front of your mind, even if they're frying chicken, like, yeah, it may smell good, but I promise you, if you remember your why, 2 seconds later, you're like, yeah, no, that's not for me. So if that means that you're taking yourself out of the house, like if you're going on a walk, or, you're going into, like if you got a woman cave or like a woman's den, you go in there, maybe you're reading some books, even help people put together like coping kits, right? So it's like a box where it's like, when you smell that chicken, you go to that box. That box could have anything from, like affirmation cards that you put in there, like your why that's like cut up real small where you can get to it. a list of different podcasts you can listen to, different documentaries to like just keep drawing you back. And you do have to keep playing it over and over in your head to get to your why. Because if they're not, you can't make them be ready. But one thing I can tell you is as you do it and you start to see results, they will get on board.
But I have a question about the fried chicken. Like, I mean, for those of us, I'm just curious about. I don't know why we attacked the fried chicken today. 'Cause why would we do that? But there's healthier ways to have fried chicken.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
Like
that
air
was the
fryer.
next point.
Is
Yes.
the air fryer really a thing, Chef ADonna?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it worth what? You know, I have one, but is it worth it?
So it's healthier. Is it
I
really
live for
healthier?
the air fryer.
Okay.
So how can
Between
we
like the
fry
air
chicken in the
fryer
air
and the Instapot. So that's one of the things. So you can slowly start to like trickle them down off of the fried chicken. It's even better if, say, if you're the one that's responsible for the grocery shopping, whatever you buy, right? Like that's just what's in the house, and it'll be like an episode of Chopped. You guys got to make it work based off of what I bought. So to your point, like maybe, and you don't want to just cut them off cold turkey, so to speak. So maybe, you're doing fried chicken, do it the regular way, right? But then to that also, like if each person is getting like 2 pieces of chicken, they get 1 piece from the air fryer, they get 1 piece from one of the traditional pieces. And you keep doing that and you like build up, you build up their taste buds for it. And then pretty soon you'll notice that they will prefer that one over, the traditional one, especially for kids. If you get them in the kitchen and you get them involved,
Right.
and like they're crushing up the topping for the chicken that's going to go in the air fryer and they're rolling it around, kids are going to want to taste what it is that they prepared.
Yeah, your son likes to cook. This could be a
Yeah,
really great
absolutely.
bonding experience.
He's more into desserts, so like that's his
cookies. We need to find healthier cookies.
This is his favorite thing in the world. So no, I think that that's really, really helpful. And I think so how can our viewers or our listeners find you? Like, where can they find you? Like, what's your Instagram information, or like how like are you taking new clients? What does that process look like?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, it's OH for Ohio, OH Culinary Coach. You can find me there. But then also I encourage everybody, go online, just book a free 15-minute session. Let's talk about what your goals are, right? And you can go right to our website. It's www.alignhealthgroup.com.
Okay.
Go on there, click, find out what day works best for you. We go through and we talk about your goals, right? Like how, I hate to use the word realistic, but how realistic are they, right? And even if you have, say, a lofty goal, we can get there. It may take a little bit longer, but just be open to the process. So we'll start off with that free call and let's get some results from there.
I love that.
I love that. That's really exciting.
Well, Chef, we love having you. Thank you for stopping by. Like, I feel like we could talk to you because there's so many individual questions that I know Maylin has specifically about her new subscription. And I just have in general about how I'm going to trick my family into eating
That's
healthier.
what it's all about, is tricking the
I
family.
just have to trick them. And
Trick them into
eventually-
doing it.
Absolutely.
Except your husband that will be listening to this and he's gonna like me trick me.
He's the main one, Chef ADonna.
Really?
Like you said earlier, like, well, whatever you buy, you gotta, and he'll just go buy something else. He's like,
okay,
I'll go to the store, guys. And
Like,
he
don't
goes-
worry about it. I'll take
He's
care
like
of
the
it.
good guy back there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, we're gonna book a consultation with you too, Chef, and maybe we can document our journey with Chef ADonna.
That would be great.
That would be awesome.
That's actually something
be
we should do
great.
that. And if you're interested, and maybe we can do a challenge in the new year.
Yes.
So we know the new year is coming, and I don't necessarily feel like New Year's are necessary, but some people need that
Need that
new
for a new
year.
start. Yeah.
It's my goal. But if you want to maybe fourth quarter start a new goal of trying to start creating these habits, so you go into a new year with like some of this support and
Yes.
training, inbox us as well, because maybe we can collectively like do it
That would
together.
be awesome.
We could.
Do like
That
a
would be
challenge.
awesome.
I think
or
we
something.
could. Yes,
Yeah, that'd be
100
fun.
days of fitness, wellness.
There we go.
With Chef ADonna.
There we go.
Wow, we
Yes.
just came up with a whole.
Just get ready. Get ready
thing.
because it's coming. So as we wrapped up, because we could be here forever. I have so many great questions about this subscription thing, but I'm going to take you offline for this. But we always ask our guests a really important question. It is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, advice for younger self?
Little
I would
ADonna.
say little ADonna, other than not messing up my mom's kitchen so bad. Let's see. Don't be afraid to fail. Like, hurry up and fail. Fail fast, but don't stay there. Right? So don't let your fear of not knowing how to do something just keep you stagnated and like, I don't. Personal chef, like, is that a thing? How could I would have never even learned about this personal chef association had I not taken that first random client off Craigslist, which we know can be like a scary place.
Yeah.
So even thinking like, am I going into somebody's like office and like as soon as I get there they're gonna lock the door? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have a healthy amount of fear, but like I
Right.
took somebody with me and I kept going and kept going and kept going. So there were definitely hiccups along the way, right? As you'll stumble with any new business venture, any new thing that you're doing, but just don't stay there and just keep going.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Chef. That's wonderful.
That's one of my favorite
Yeah,
things.
I love that
yes.
too.
Oh, thank you for being here. I'm so
Thank
excited you were
Thank
here.
you for having me.
Yes. So you would definitely be seeing more Chef ADonna, and we invite you to follow her on social media, listen to the podcast, tell us what you thought, questions that you have for her, because we do take sometimes some episodes to just answer questions.
Okay.
Because we get so many, and we want to make sure we give it back to our followers. So as always, remember, it's not about this moment. It's bigger than you. Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.